What is up, guys? This is Sam Talks About Games, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Metroid. Now, I think we're in a quote unquote golden age for Metroid at the moment, and I think this shows with the release of Dread and Prime Remastered so close together, and the rumor of Prime 2 Remastered and Prime 4 on the horizon, and if Prime 2 Remastered comes, Prime 3 Remastered probably would. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I will note, this may be a little bit surprising to see that today's video is not about Pikmin 4. I have been playing it. I already have 5 hours on the game. It's very, very, very good. I'm very much enjoying myself with Pikmin 4, and I'd even say it surpasses my expectations. Now, on to the video. So, back in the early to mid 2000s, Metroid had a golden age, if you will. So there was Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, the Prime Trilogy, all releasing within like 3 years. And then they had spin-offs such as Prime Hunters and Prime Pinball and all this stuff. So Metroid had a lot of releases coming out during that time, despite middling sales. Sales were about a million, under a million, a million and a half. Prime 1 was the highest selling Metroid at under 3 million. It has just recently been dethroned by Metroid Dread, and I think Metroid Dread will not have a long reign in the top spot because Prime 4 we're coming up on. So Dread should enjoy its number 1 spot in sales while it can, because I believe Prime has the potential. Once again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think Prime 4 in a world can sell 10 million copies. Zelda, before Breath of the Wild, only sold 8 million copies for its best-selling game. Its absolute best-selling. And then Breath of the Wild sold 30 million. So if we want to get technical here, Metroid Prime 4 has the potential to do nearly 4 times its bestseller. So it could do 12 million. But here's what I think it's going to do. It's going to land somewhere between 5 to 10 million. Maybe 6, 7, 8 million, somewhere around there. But that'll still be a big breakout for the Metroid series. Enough rambling though. My point is, Metroid's actually doing good for once now, sales-wise. And the games are as good as ever. Metroid Dread is probably my second favorite 2D Metroid. It cannot beat Super Metroid. I'm sorry, but Super Metroid holds a place in my heart. But Metroid Dread, great game. Prime Remastered, the best remaster on the Switch by far. Prime 2 Remastered, which is rumored, still rumored, I know. But if Jeff Grubb is to be believed, which he probably should be because he got Prime Remastered right, Prime 2 Remastered isn't going to be as big boy as Prime Remastered, but Prime 2 Remastered should be pretty close. It should still look impressive. I believe they're still going to implement the physical-based lighting and all that, and the modern controls, and it's going to be worth your cash. I believe so. So, moving on. I believe we're in a golden age for Metroid. I believe we're going to see a Metroid release almost every year. I really do believe that. And to support my evidence, Metroid seems to release in sagas, if you will, because the Prime Trilogy all came out really close to each other, and now we're starting over again with Prime 4. So what I see this as is maybe this is another trilogy. Since the original Prime saga, that story's wrapped up, maybe this starts a new story that gets wrapped up. It could be similar to the Xenoblade trilogy or the Xenosaga trilogy. The Xenoblade trilogy is very, very, very vaguely connected to the Xenosaga trilogy, but not really. They're really their own separate thing. And that's what Monolith Soft is probably going to do in the future. Xenoblade's probably not going to happen again. They finished up the Klaus saga, But my point is, enough rambling. This is what happens when you don't talk with a script. My point is, Metroid Prime 4, I'm thinking, can spawn Metroid Prime 5 and 6. Now, are they going to be called 5 and 6? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt Metroid Prime 4 is going to even be called 4. I think it's going to be called Metroid Prime something. Similar to how Metroid Dread, when they revealed it, they said Metroid 5, but it's actually Metroid Dread. I think Metroid Prime 4 being called 4 and having the first 3 games on the eShop would it would implement like a mindset into the common consumer that they need to play 1 through 3 to play 4. And that can be seen as a large task. So I do think they're going to call Metroid Prime 4 Metroid Prime suffix, whatever it is. On top of there possibly being a Metroid Prime game coming out every 5 years, I do think that Metroid Dread is going to get a sequel because it's the best-selling Metroid game. It's one of the highest reviewed. I mean, Mercury Steam did a fantastic job on Metroid Dread, especially considering all the skepticism pre-release, because, they made the Lords of Shadow games for Castlevania, so it was a little bit iffy. They knocked it out the park with both Samus Returns and Dread. I still need to play Samus Returns. I will someday. Or maybe I'll just play the original. But I think they're going to port Samus Returns, actually, in HD at some point. I don't know when, but I believe they will. Maybe we'll get a Super Metroid remake from them. Maybe they could have 2 teams and one working on the next Metroid game, which I'm thinking, since Metroid Dread took 4 years to develop, I'm going to say the next Metroid game, 2D, comes out in 2025. And I believe they could work on like a Super Metroid remake that would take them 2 to 3 years, like a full remake. Maybe a Metroid Fusion remake. I really like Metroid Fusion. Port over Samus Returns. There's so much they can do. And then we have Prime 2 and 3 remastered, which are likely. And you think about it, in the next 10 years, we could get 10 Metroid games. I mean, there's a lot that they can do with Metroid. And it's very exciting to think about. And there's things that we haven't even thought about yet. Like, what about a Metroid multiplayer shooter? Call of Duty style. Which, obviously, Prime 4 is not going to be that, but it could be a spin-off thing. Like, Prime Hunters, let's say, Or Prime 2 Echoes can, when it's remastered, the multiplayer mode can be online, and it can have a proper multiplayer. That could be it. There's just so much that can happen with Metroid, and so much potential the series has, and I believe it'll realize a lot of its potential. I believe Nintendo is trying to bring this series back into the limelight and not have another period where they don't release a Metroid game for like 10 years. That period on the 3DS and Wii U was a real kicker. There was pretty much 0 Metroid games. I mean, there's Federation Force, which is actually a solid game. It's just not what we wanted. So, I believe there's a very, very, very bright future for Metroid. And I'm gonna list off some more ideas that I think can happen in addition to the remakes and all the obvious stuff. Obviously, the multiplayer shooter, I think, can happen for Metroid. And I think they could find a way to implement it into the Warriors style. Like Hyrule Warriors, but Metroid Warriors. So, it could be first person, right? It could look like Prime. But there could just be loads of enemies. And you could have like charge beams to take out crowds of enemies. And you could have like the hyper beam from Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime 3 to just blast through enemies. And you could be going through like a space station doing all this stuff, and it would be very interesting, very cool. I don't think it'll happen. I think they'd go with like a Xenoblade Warriors first, but I'm not counting it out. But yeah, that's what I think is in store for the future of Metroid. That's about it. See ya.